year is going to be held in San Francisco this year, and it's just now time to start signing up for it. So it's exciting to get together with our colleagues every year in that time frame. All other districts from all over the state, big ones, little ones, and learn from each other and go to different sessions. So excited about that in advance.
Yeah, I'll share two pieces or two things. Had the honor of joining the freestyle exhibition. Was it last week? We actually ran into
yeah.
and so we got to see a lot of great artwork and just the new facility in full action, packed with a lot of families and students proudly displaying their work. And then I same day walked over to Mountain View and was really impressed by the attendance at Campus Depot. I think that speaks to a lot of the Mountain View staff's work and outreach for families to really get the word out on what offers, not just the great.
Also wanted to say that I attended the Mountain View High School Senior Awards, and I was impressed that it not only honored academic achievements, but also giving back to the community and athletes. But it wasn't just their athletic but also how much they helped fellow athletes. So I was really impressed by both the number of awards, how many amazing students we have, but also the thought that went into them. So another kudos to you, Kip.
Okay. Becky, we're ready for you, Dr. Meyer.
Thank you. I love these reports. So thank you. Nice to end on a great high note. So first of all, this is our last regular board meeting. So I wanted to just briefly take this opportunity to thank the MVLA team that allowed us to have such a successful year. So many are here with us tonight. So I wanted to start out by thanking our principals, and as you stated, special thanks to Dr. Glazier for revving up communications and organization and academics at Mountain View High School. Thank you for a great year. Not an easy job, but an important one. As we've mentioned, and we had a special celebration for the retirements. Special thanks to Wynn Satterwhite, who is the principal that really kind of like the mother of Los Altos. You would want your children to be there because you know that they were nurtured and cared for. So Wynn is not being allowed to leave, but she is retiring from the current spot she's in. So thank you, Wynn, for 38 years and just 4 years. I've enjoyed working with you. So thank you. And Julie's hiding there. Julie stepped into the role, as you know, and following Brenda, and just really took over in such a unique and peaceful and positive way in difficult times, and has handled kind of some unique situations that have occurred. And the adult school really is the bridge to the community and supports the community with the work that you do, Julie. So thank you. Also rose the bar and presented in the community and shared her personal story here for us. So thank you, Julie. It's just a pleasure to work with you. And then we have this picture up here of Middle College. And on the left, you'll see that smiling face is Suzanne Woolfolk in the picture. And Suzanne has been so visible and present and engaged. The first meeting I had with her, I said, you know, I want this to be what you would want for your children, enrichment at a continuation. And it is. And so Alta Vista has activities, barbecues, things that make you feel like a family, while they've upped the college and career game, upped the rigor, and just with Middle College and freestyle, as you mentioned, she's everywhere and the students appreciate it. So thank you. And I'm not done. I've got like a whole row here.
Could I just add something about middle
Certainly.
college? That was the opening of their new middle college
Room.
room.
Mhm.
Jeeves is there. He's not looking at the camera. Sorry about that.
He's kind of hiding,
I
actually.
know. So yeah, I really enjoyed talking to all the middle college teachers and was really impressed by the program.
And thank you for going. It was
yeah.
really, it's just a, they've revitalized in the last 2 years with it doubling the.
Yes, and I was
the
going to say that
school.
the doubling, I think,
Mhm.
has really, I could see the students hanging out actually. In the, basically they have a part where the teachers sit and then there's a part where the students can sit, and lunch came and there are a whole bunch of students sitting there. And I thought this is really a community here.
Mhm. So definitely a community. So thank you to those who are here. Every board meeting, by the way, here supporting us. And then you know very well the associate superintendents, but the public may not know them as well. But then again, they might. Special thanks to Terry, who we certainly will hear from a little bit tonight with LCAP and all the work that we have happened through Ed Services, and Layla Benson, who through personnel services makes things better for our staff and our students, and has the grace and composure to have difficult conversations and make things go smoothly. Mike Matheson, who tonight we'll hear about the budget, who really has been working with the construction leaders and food service, and certainly mentoring the budget department. You will see tonight just that sometimes the invisibility of that department speaks to its strength. And so thank you, Mike, for the work that you do as well. And then Debbie Maher here, who works in my office, as you know, who manages the board meetings, and really the front office. So thank you, Debbie, for a wonderful year. Just really know that the work that you do is important. And then Bob, who just came here tonight for the thank you. I'm just teasing. No, I'm teasing because he has a good sense of humor. And just also wanted to say that technology is another thing that when it's going well, you don't hear much about it. But when I first came here, it's all I heard about. Wi-Fi doesn't work, etc. And then to be thrown into the pandemic, which was all led with technology, really that drive and that organization and that team that you built, Bob, we're very grateful for. So thank you for that. So I made a very short superintendent's report because I know we might have a longer evening, but did want to just acknowledge this real stellar group of professionals for all that they do. And
May I go ahead and clap for
Okay.
that? Kudos to
all
all of
right.
you.
Thank you. And in this picture, you can see Jeeves. It still looks happy, kind of nudging. But yes, the expansion and Foothill is opened it up so we have more space. So the students have 2 new areas on Foothill's campus, which is unusual for that to happen. It just points to the partnership and the trust that they have in our program. So you'll see this slide again, or that picture again. Continuing to work with academic excellence, equity, and engagement in everything that we do. And I think it was pretty much shared. Thank you, Ms. Corns, Theta, for mentioning this event. Middle College is a place they love visitors, so I would encourage all of you to visit, and if you've already visited, visit again. And Ms. Woolfolk has mentioned to me that they're here into late June, so they have a longer year, so it's not too late. But you can see here the joyful staff and team. And then Alta Vista, as I mentioned, this is part of positive behavior intervention and support. And this is a way that students for different actions and behavior can gain access, tickets, etc., to rewards. And you see Suzanne kind of leading the way, directing traffic, if you will, in this photo, and lots of things happening, and you can kind of see the lightheartedness at Alta Vista, which I think is wonderful to see. Also wanted to share that Carol Johnson was CSEA Region 43 award winner for her work in this region, and just a lovely photo of her. She does not have Lego with her in the photo, but probably below, assuming. But congratulations to her. And so that's quite an honor for the region. And then also just some beautiful pictures of Mountain View High. This was the senior sunset. They're also having a picnic this week. All of the great senior activities. We will miss Ava as she goes to USC, champion for youth, but just a wonderful tradition with the senior sunset. The senior awards, this was pre the students sitting in the chairs, but on the right we had Ms. Denny's choir, a tradition at the senior awards, and on the left the students who really helped coordinate and organize the event, and the MCs were students as well, and they did an amazing job. So it was wonderful to see. And then Los Altos, their choir is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. They have a strong choir director who has, I think it's her second year this year, third. Okay, I think it's easily doubled. It's so nice to see that the class grow in this way. And there also have been events where Mountain View and Los Altos have had opportunities to sing together. So what a great way for them to learn from each other. So beautiful choir that went on. Here's another picture of it. You can see they're enjoying themselves. Great outfits there, very professional. And then to share something that I just find just so personally fulfilling. This is our new student advisory that I've mentioned so many times, probably every time I'm here at the Soup Report, but I wanted you to see some of the pictures. Sadie, let's see where she is in here. Far left middle. It's her birthday today. She is a chair, and they've already in their first meeting, I ended up the second half standing against the wall just in amazement. Created goals, had breakout conversations, and then came up and presented each of the different groups. I don't even remember them being told to get up and present. They just popped up and gave their feedback, and just a wonderful group of enthusiastic students from a variety of different vantage points. And then I wanted to share, here's a picture of them in action. This was the share out group that got up to share. Each group shared at some point, and then Christoph and Sadie, they collected the goals, because Sadie wanted to make sure that we had general targets, much like our board goals. She put up the board goals in the meeting, and we had them propped up, and then they found very similar goals to what the board had. You can see her synthesizing and leading the way along with everyone. They really all engaged thoroughly. And then we put their goals on our letterhead, so you can really see. They wanted to focus on wellness throughout the schools, and they wanted to ensure there was input from students on what that would be, and input across the board. They really appreciated student pathways, and they wanted to increase student pathways and make sure students knew about them, but they wanted to emphasize college was not the only option. They wanted consistency throughout the district and department. So the breakout group I was in talked about equitable grading practices, and wanted to look at making sure that if you had this teacher at one campus, that if you had the same class, same name, that you had an equitable experience, and even more so if you had them next door to each other. And so that was what they meant with consistency throughout the district. They really meant inside the classroom. Got excited about that. And then commit to taking action. So they had a lot of conversation, and one of the students said, well, we want to make sure there's action, because if we're going to just sit here for a year and talk about it, I don't know that I want to be part of that. I want to make sure that we commit to these goals. And then equitable resources for all students, as well as access to information. So that really, those are the goals that we're going to start the year off with in August. So with that, I did say it would be shorter. We have a lot of celebrations that are going on, a lot of events that are happening, and we will have a MVLA magazine that is coming out hopefully the end of this week, beginning of next. It will have all sorts of photos of celebrations, including graduation. And you can see here in this photo, the freestyle ceremony that they've already held, in addition to their exhibit that they held last week, I believe, and in the beautiful new building. And then here, just another list of the graduation ceremonies, Adult Ed, Alta Vista, Los Altos, and Mountain View. And we're still nailing down the time for the end of year. So perhaps, we were trying to see if 9 or 10 might work. And I think I've heard from most of you. So please just let me know if that we can move that time, but that's a tentative time for that. And that concludes my superintendent report.
Tomorrow's adult ed graduation, that's at Mountain View, right?
Correct.
And what time, Julie, would you like us to show up? What did she say?
Shortly before 6 p.m.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes.
Dr. Meyer, may we have a copy of those goals from the student advisory?
Absolutely. Yes.
All pretty on the letterhead like that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Meyer. Communications, this is the opportunity for representatives of our professional groups to address the board, but I don't see any representatives here, so I'm guessing that is not going to happen. This is the time for public comment for items not on the agenda. Anybody wishing to address the board on an item not on the agenda may do so at this point. If you would be so kind as to fill out a green slip, I will be happy to fill you out. It looks like we have no takers, but we'll move on. Consolidated motion. We have quite a few items here tonight. 9 to be exact. Would anyone like to pull any of those? Looks like we're okay with it as it is. In that case, may I have a motion?
Motion.
Second.
Moved by Dina and seconded by Catherine. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries 5-0. So we are up to the business action items of our meeting. And the first of those is the ethnic studies course. Now, I have to say I was a little surprised to see that this is on with nothing more than the framework in here. Now, of course, the comments from the public were posted, I guess, Friday afternoon around 3:20. And I have to add further to that, I looked at those comments very seriously and looked at the references in there, and I have to say that there's a great deal of validity to the complaint that many portions of the curriculum do not appear to handle controversial items in a balanced way. And I don't know what to do about that at this late stage. So I am at a loss, but if other board members have something to say, go ahead.
I do sooner or later, but Sanjay, you go.
You got
You
something to
were
say?
starting to talk, so you go first.
So this has been tough, right? I think this has been a tough process. It hasn't been easy. It's been difficult to understand. I think one of the difficulties that I've had throughout this process as I analyze it, I've gotten the chance, like I said, I was able to attend a couple of ethnic studies classes, 2 of them. I thought the teachers did an amazing job. It was fantastic. It was a fun class. The students were very much involved, engaged in the topic and participating. So I thought the teachers were just fantastic. So, but I think one of the difficulties I have overall when I go through the material that was presented to us, right? That's where it's kind of hard to understand. Are we teaching a balanced point of view? When the leadership, the ethnic studies leadership team came and spoke with us on a couple of the special board meetings we had, I thought they did a wonderful job. I think they explained it. They showed in all of their explanations of the courses and all the units that they're teaching that yes, everything does appear to be in a balanced way. But the balances that, or the part that was difficult is that I'm hearing that it's balanced, but I don't always see it in the material that was present to us. And so one of the just an example, I just want to give some examples that I put together. When I went going through the material, there was just example of the definitions. There's a definition that we used that was there, and with it clear whether everyone uses that definition, I'm not sure, but there was a definition of color blindness, and kind of it struck me that it was just being too biased in a way that it is wrong to say that you're colorblind. And and then there's a video that's part of that curriculum that shows an argument on a CNN clip of an argument between 2 people about what it means that be colorblind, and the definition that for colorblindness says that it's basically it's what white people say, that they're colorblind. Wow. So my question is, why can't a non-white person say that they're colorblind, right? I mean, what's wrong with saying colorblind? If they mean it, that it's the absence of prejudice, it's the absence of discrimination or differentiation on the basis of skin color. What if that's what they're intended when they say that they're colorblind? I can understand the other point of view, but I don't know whether the other points of view are being as argued as the point of view that colorblindness is not a good thing. And so that's where I was, when I go through the material that's there, that's where I'm not sure that we are seeing a balance of all views in all subjects. Now I'm not saying that's true for every unit, right? Okay, I'm not saying that's true for every unit. But there were some when I go through those units, that's where I'm kind of caught. Are we sharing that? And maybe they are in the classroom. It's hard for me to know because there's a difference from what we see material wise as opposed to what's happening in the classroom. And that's what's not easy, right? Because like I said, I went to those 2 classes, the 2 classrooms I saw, it was fantastic, no issues. I didn't go to every classroom, so I can't say, but that's the difficulty that I would say that's sort of the kind of the I would say the kind of the tough position that it's in, right? It's hard to just say, okay, yes, it's fine. So I can understand when I read through all the comments that we got back, and you know, some of them I thought were, you know, there were some comments, especially on the comments about it being anti-Semitic and stuff like that. I do not think that there was any material that was anti-Semitic. I haven't heard that. So I think any comment that related to that, I disagree with that what the people have mentioned about. To me, I don't agree with those comments. But some of the comments about, you know, being balanced, that's where I could see those points of view based on just if you looked at the material alone.
But the problem, as I see it, Sanjay, and I think you did a great job of explaining what I feel as well, is that the document is the public face of the course. And it, you know, people don't listen to old YouTube videos of the presentations that the ethnic studies teachers did. And as I remarked at the time, when I listen to them, it sounds great. But then I look at the material itself and I see that there are controversial positions there. You just picked one, but there are others that other people pointed out, others that I found. There are way too many for us to go into here tonight. And I think it's a dilemma for me at least, and maybe for you, because I want to see the course's face be as good as the presentations that were made. And the document is actually going to survive whatever comes out of the presentations, and even the teachers who teach it, because other teachers will be coming along and they'll teach it differently perhaps. So the one thing that is an anchor is this set of units.
Right. So the question I was going to ask, so Terry, and thank you for responding to my email about. And I like your explanation in terms of, like, because I was, you know, in terms of what is being taught in that specific subject that I emailed about. But just for those who don't know, I was talking about oppression, one of the sections of oppression, and she explained it very well. So my question is, though, is there a possibility of looking at the material, or I guess looking at the material that's been presented to kind of look at and see that, you know, re-look at and say, okay, are we sharing what is really being taught in the class, and is it balanced? You know, are we sharing that?
And if I could, we had just a few comments that we wanted to make, and Terry's actually planning to address the comments,
Oh,
the
okay.
feedback.
Nobody told me that.
I know, well, that's why I was
got it. Okay.
kind of, but
Sure.
but
then we-
certainly if we do not cover what you're
Yeah,
asking, if
okay.
you wouldn't mind, if you could help
Yeah,
us circle back.
absolutely,
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry about
No,
that.
not a problem. So first of all, it's good to hear this for my comments, but I did want to just share that what we're bringing forward tonight is the framework. It's the course that was approved for a year. So with the support of the teaching team that we had present to us for multiple sessions, they have developed this coursework, and certainly as it is presented inside the class, there's much more to the conversation and to the meat of the course. This is the framework, this is the outline, the sentence starters, if you will. So that being said, what we want to share with you tonight, first of all, is, and I heard it from you all as well, our appreciation for this team for putting this together. It was a lot of work. We had a pilot where both campuses had this course created. They were creating it as they were going. Then they would stop along the way. Then they would reflect and they would refine and they would discuss how it went. And then they would create this body of work that they moved on further with. And also wanted to share that our staff have had many conversations with the ethnic studies team, and we are recommending that we move forward with this this body of work for 9th grade implementation next year. And we did have that feedback not only gathered during meetings and during listening to the comments at our individual board meetings, but also through that period of time that we had it open to the public to comment and to write according to the specifics that I hear you're both starting to talk about. So what Terry, and I don't know if I give you a long enough thank you, but she's done a lot of tremendous work on, working with the teacher team, and thank you to the teachers who worked on this. She really she took an overview of the feedback without going into each specific area, and then we kind of clumped it into categories. So you could see these were all kind of in this, about this topic. This was from someone who wanted to change what the content was in general, so not necessarily as applicable. And then maybe this category had some of the things you're talking about, some of the specifics that could be considered controversial, or something that perhaps we need to be very thoughtful about in our presentation. And I really do know from observing that our teachers have been. So to that, I'm going to go ahead and pass this to Terry, who's going to give us a general feedback, a little bit on the work to date and where we are and what it looks like moving forward. But most specifically, I believe about the comments and the public feedback and what we've received and what we're doing with that. So Terry.
Thank you very much. So as Dr. Meyer alluded, we've done a thorough process in terms of evaluation as well as public comment. We modeled this after our LCAP process for public comment. And then I believe we went above and beyond that and left the public comment open for over a month. That included a deep dive into our units. And as Dr. Meyer noted, they fell into a couple of major categories, some of general comments of support. Others were ideas on specific units or thoughts of what to include within a unit, as well as there were comments about material that is actually not included in the course and needing to make sure that we're understanding that some of the comments were misinformed. We posted these comments quickly after we shut down and curated into the nice documents onto our website, as Phil said over on Friday. And our next steps now are with the teacher team to take a look at these comments. I met with the department coordinator on Friday and we reviewed them. We both noted that many of these comments have been addressed in our previous study sessions, meaning that we've heard these comments since the beginning of our ethnic studies process. And for each of these comments, our teacher team has spoke specifically about what they're doing, and some of these are misinformed with the other side of the perspective or another unit that goes with that original unit that they're commenting on, that does show balance, that does show multiple perspectives. And then there's some comments that I think, just like any course team, any subject matter, where you continue to reflect, refine, and work on your course year after year. I'll just say, as a teacher of 14 years, every year I refined, reflected, and adjusted my course to add scaffolding or new current event information. And I don't foresee the ethnic studies team knowing the quality of the teachers being any different, but taking a look at their course and saying, what are the small adjustments and refinements that we make, like they do in their world studies class and their US history class. And so we have always supported community input. And this is no different. And I do really believe that this team has modeled community input from last year, the vast amount of time putting together parent groups to meet with them in the evenings, meeting with student groups, meeting with our JCRC earlier this year to share openly where we're at and what our lessons are, and then listen to that feedback. And so this public comment will be taken with that same sincerity of taking a look and saying, what are the suggestions that we may incorporate to be a part of our ethnic studies. But I do feel that our ethnic studies course is a strong, well-rounded, multi-perspective course that, as Dr. Meyer noted, we'd like to recommend for approval tonight.
And Terry, Sanjay was mentioning the comment about systems of power. And there was an inquiry, not just from you, but certainly in the feedback that we saw. And your response, I believe, today is really worth repeating.
Thank you. So this is an example of a topic that was brought up multiple times by the public, and I felt that our study session addressed it. But I do think having multiple times to speak to these is very helpful. That systems of power example was this lesson where it talked about power over me, and from principals to administrators to the board, et cetera. And it was a lesson that was helping students understand, just like in a governmental system, levels of decision making. And at what level does a certain group have a different type of decision-making capacity or ability versus other groups? And so what do you do with that as a student? Well, if you're wanting to have concerns about a grade change, who do you go to? Who has that level of decision-making? If you're concerned about language in a board policy, who has that decision-making capacity or ability? And so therefore it helps the students understand, again, just if you want to have change in society, know the governmental or societal or collegial systems of decision-making, and who do you need to go to help make those changes.
Yeah, so I mean, and I think that's great, and that's why I said I liked your response. I think that, like I was saying when I was speaking earlier, the issue is in the material, though, it doesn't state it that way, right? It states, who has power over you. It uses that kind of language, which then somebody can take that as a, when somebody as kind of a negative way, right? Somebody has power over you, a controller. So that's where I think, maybe that's where the misinformation is coming from, where it may be being taught the way you're describing it, but when you look at the material, it may not, it's not being explained in that way. So that's where I think that's where there's maybe some disconnect that's occurring. And so maybe that's something that I would just maybe suggest is that, as we move forward, we kind of look at the language that we have in our material. And in some cases, the languages have to be a little bit rough, just because it's that kind of a subject. But as long as there's an explanation for that. But in this case, like the power overview and your explanation, they're different, right? And you can get a different vibe from that, right? So
I completely understand, and that's why I appreciate the process that the board took with doing the examination, so that any of those questions about what is this lesson entailing or trying to teach to our students, we have those opportunities to ask those questions and get the responses. So I thought that this very transparent process was helpful for this.
I still think Sanjay's point is valid, though, that it has to be the written word itself that reflects the subtleties and the balance that goes into the discussion. I mean, as we said already, the explanations that we got at the study sessions were great, but they weren't in the written material. Catherine.
Well, one thing I have to say about, say, the slide set compared to the material presented, and I'm mostly have presented in different arenas like software development and stuff like that, but you have a slide that may have 4 little bullet points and you spend more than 5 minutes on it, sometimes way longer. So you cannot possibly represent what you'd actually be saying in real life with so few words to start with. So that part doesn't really bother me, but if there are particular, I call them hot buttons, that people have, or phraseology that is a problem, that is where I think the concepts you said that you iterate on it. My dad's favorite phrase was iterative refinement. Everything could use iterative refinement. Refine it. And this is where course teams can share together what a different class or a different set of parents said in reaction to this one set of situations or comments or definitions or whatever. And then everybody is aware that this is a particularly hard one to talk about or controversial or whatever, so that you do get to the other definitions and the other details. And we're not being graded on whether the person this is a combination of almost like a philosophy class or whatever kind of class in a way, and a history class. So there's the fact part, but then there's the thinking about it and considering it in your environment and in the world. And the history, if you ask somebody what date a certain thing happened, that's true or not. If you ask somebody a certain definition and they say, oh no, you didn't give us the one that was on our slide, page 2, bullet 4, compared to one that they thoughtfully described in an essay, then that's not right. So we're trying to get people to think and come up with their own definitions or comparative definitions, as long as our teachers are open to considering the input of others and not critical of the students for disagreeing on the certain definition or anything. I think that the overall framework or whatever we're talking about, it still really holds valid. And I think that paperwork like this that's published on our website that describes the comments and describes the issues that certain people have will make the teachers and the course teams more sensitive to those particular ones. Some things will just go on by and nobody has a problem discussing them, but others are going to be hard. They are going to be hard to discuss. I agree with that. And I just assume that we have excellent educators with excellent backgrounds, some specifically in this particular area, ethnic studies, as well as in history and in English and so on, civics and so on, that they are the kind of teacher we want teaching a class that's open-minded in terms of taking the perspectives of the students and not saying, aha, you didn't define colorblind, for instance, the way it was written on page 3. You know what I'm saying? You had a good, thoughtful point of view on what that would be.
What is the incentive to present a different point of view on these definitions? They're presented as the definitions of key terms on race and
Well, then
racism.
that's the part where the teacher says, these are some.
Do you know that that's what's said, or do
Well,
they
I
say
don't know.
these are the
They could,
definitions?
well, maybe that's what they could change iteratively fine. Say these are some commonly held versions of explanations of these things.
But they're not even that. Well, that's a different subject.
Yeah, well, I don't necessarily agree with that. They must, and I won't say must, they are found
Look
somewhere.
at the definition of racism. I looked it up on Google. For the first 12 definitions were all different from this. Not a word.
But there's
changed.
20,
What?
there's 20 there. So why isn't this one,
This one wasn't even there.
a possible definition too? That's what I'm saying.
But a dictionary is supposed to give you the ordinary language meaning of something. If you're taking a specialized meaning, it's an obligation on you to explain why you need that specialized meaning.
Well, that's where the iterative refinement in terms of they can refine
Yeah,
their
but we're being
presentation.
asked to, well, maybe we're not being asked to approve. Are we being asked to approve just this framework? Or are we being asked to approve all those units?
We're being asked to approve the course, which is the framework. And so the specific units and lessons are beneath that. So you're not being asked to approve every specific lesson.
Could I also just jump in real fast? As I noted a little bit earlier, one of the commenters in the public comment was referring to outdated documents that was corrected back in March. One of those updated documents is also incorporating the definition that Phil is talking about with racism. That is not what's incorporated in our current material. That is the documents that were never used in our material that we corrected as soon as we found that out.
I got this from the last iteration of Unit 2.
The one that was posted up in the public comment?
Yes. I'm pretty sure. Well, send me the other one and I'll check it.
Okay.
So I would just like to point out a couple of the hot buttons I saw that I think that you need to be careful how you address is all. Not that I think that you're totally one-sided towards that, but for instance, several people mentioned Marxism, Marxist theory, Marxism and stuff. I think that, I hope that there's some further discussion on what that whole concept is and how that relates to the ethnic studies. And the same with one of the comments mentioned our system of why am I drawing a blank? Capitalism, and that it was very anti-capitalism. Well, I didn't see that at all, that the comment said that. So how do you, in the way you explain things or in your written material, update it so that you counter that before somebody ends up putting a comment like that? See what I'm saying? And there might be others too. Those were just two examples. And Sanjay already brought up the anti-Semitism one, so there's good explanations for these things, but sometimes maybe you can add or enhance or iterate on your written material so that people don't misinterpret it.
Understood.
Since you mentioned capitalism, all references to capitalism were removed in the eventually adopted model curriculum for ethnic studies.
By the state, you mean?
By the state. They were all removed from the first version.
Mhm.
And now they're back in ours. I don't see why capitalism is being talked about at all. Save that for an economics course. I mean, we promised, or we were promised, that this would not use material from portions of the first model that were omitted in the second model. And now we're doing all of the stuff with capitalism.
I don't know that I think of it as all the stuff with capitalism.
Well, it's not all that stuff, but there are remarks.
There are comments about it, yeah.
Right, there are remarks made perhaps in passing, perhaps as an aside, just to say, oh, and this is something about capitalism, and invariably it's not favorable.
So what specific example do you have that you?
Well, here's one of the.
No, I'm talking about you, because we're the people evaluating it. I mean, to me, economics is part of history. You cannot evaluate economics without, I'm a political
I'm not
science
arguing
major.
that it's not part of history.
To me, when people say you can't mention capitalism, what I saw in the examples was the economics of why people, for example, why people immigrated. That is actually a very important part of why some people, not all people, but why some people immigrated. And if you don't understand that, then you're not going to understand a key part of immigration. So I think for some people, talking about economics to them equates to saying capitalism is bad. And to me, it's simply talking about
That's not what I'm
economics.
talking about.
Well, I mean, that's some of the comments we got.
Right.
So
Here's one that was in the comments. This isn't about capitalism, but this one disturbed me because it was very misleading. So this is in the comments on Unit 4, and it's talking about the a lack of historical context is also evident in the excerpts from a white worker speech in Chinese Immigrant Magazine article, which states, This state of things brings about a terrible competition because Irish, who must live as civilized Americans, and the Chinese, who live like degraded slaves. And that's the end of the quote. And then in parentheses, to explain the word degraded, it has disgusting. But then, as the commenter points out, the word disgusting was added by whoever prepared the worksheet. It was not the original article. Degrading has a very different meaning, more akin to humiliating. Many Chinese came to this country and worked for years as indentured servants to pay off their voyage. In context, it is easy to understand why an American worker, not long after slavery was abolished once and for all, would be worried about the rise of indentured servitude, creating humiliating living conditions for laborers. That's a far different interpretation than what you get just by reading the quoted phrase. That's balance.
So I think for me, the problem we're having, right, is what is written in the curriculum. We're being asked to evaluate the framework, okay? But what we're being presented, what we're talking about is the curriculum. And the curriculum is only a part of what happens in the classroom. So I'm not sure why you presented the curriculum and are approving the framework. I think this is a nuanced, complex, controversial topic. I think you have ninth graders new to MVLA. It's a course that builds on itself. It needs a lot of scaffolding. And I think the main challenge that you have is in Unit 1, where students come from a variety of backgrounds. And I agree, you have to have some common ground. And I think there could be some refinements. I saw actually the school example was rewritten to talk about decision making. So I think focusing on the curriculum, we're not going to actually get to what is taught in the classroom, because that's just a piece of paper and it depends on what the teacher says about it, frankly. If they say, they could say, that's great. I think Chinese deserve to be treated that way. If they said that in the classroom, they could. I have no idea. But what the teachers told me, and they came before us multiple times, and they presented the framework to me, showed me that they would present a balanced approach. And they're presenting bits of their, what they present in the classroom, in the curriculum. It can't possibly be every single piece of thing that they present to their students, because we're talking about we're talking about it's over many days, and two, we're talking about students that have different backgrounds. So some students may have, and you should be teaching to the class you have. So you're going to pick the materials that match if you're a good teacher, you're going to pick the materials that suit the students you have. So I don't feel by looking at the curriculum that I'm getting really what's being taught in the classroom. What I have to put my faith in is the teachers who come before me and tell me what the framework is. And I did question them very hard on, are you actually going to deal with people who are combative and are not gonna go with your program? And they responded in a way that reassured me that they were quite willing and able to deal with controversy, and they were fine with people who were even I don't want to be here, and you have to convince me why this course is even important. So that's what I came away with. And I think that's really where the rubber meets the road, is what the teachers are actually doing, what they're saying, how they're presenting the material. And you could present the exact same two pieces of material, like the Hulk Hogan video, which to me was kind of weird, but I'm not a ninth grader. You could present that as this is the greatest thing ever, and it's so patriotic. Or you could point out there are only white people in the video, except for historical figures. So there are many things you could say about that video, and it's all in how you present it and what you say and the discussions you have. And that I can't get from a piece of paper. The only way that I can really evaluate this course is by looking at the framework and what the teachers tell me. And I feel that I really drilled them pretty hard on that. So I feel comfortable.
And I'll just add on to that, Theta, that I think if we look at the framework, and I asked Terry this question, is this what we can expect to be the alignment that we'll see across many more sections next year? And the answer to that was yes. And the reality is that the course is going to continue to evolve and adjust based off the needs of students in the classroom. And I will say that in looking, I read through all the comments, I read through all the materials, and when I see things and questions after things are cited and in terms of the different sources, and there's questions like, how does the document describe? Or, you know, what message is being conveyed? Those are open-ended questions that are pushing students to think critically, regardless of content. Like, that's the goal, that we let students conclude what they're going to conclude based off a variety of different sources. I also will say I've never seen a course that has such diversity in both sources and mediums, and the amount of videos, articles. Like this feels very much like a college course, contrary to what some of the comments have stated. So I feel confident, and I also trust the teachers who presented to us multiple times, to Theta's point. I'm comfortable with the framework, and I think we're always going to have difference in opinion and what you know, different things to include in terms of each unit. But I think the units are sequenced in a really logical way to align with the framework and the goals and the questions, right, that are aligned to each of the units. So that's what I'll say on that.
I do hope that these comments are taken to heart, in the sense of, you know, when they're talking about immigration, and say, are you asking questions about where did your family come from, and you know, this sort of thing. It reminds me of, was it Molly's Pilgrim back in 2nd or 3rd grade, that kids read about, and they had to talk about their heritage or background. I forget the name of the book, but it was somebody's pilgrim. You know, are you discussing that sort of thing? I don't know if I can really tell. But yeah.
I'll confirm that we are definitely taking these questions to heart. I set up a meeting with the teachers for tomorrow. I reached out to them on Friday and let them know that public comment was posted, and I wanted to convene with all of them to review. So affirmative.
Anybody else have anything to say?
I think the other thing that really impressed me was the students. They are a self-selected group of students, it's true, but the amount of enthusiasm, the amount they expressed that they had learned. A student in particular said that she loved herself. A student said that she had learned a lot about her two opposing, basically two parts of her family that were basically she felt were in opposition, and now she understood them. So I felt their comments were very insightful and very nuanced and very and actually exactly what I would want students to say about the class. So I was like, okay, that is really where the I want to say the rubber meets the road, is what do the students say about this class who take this class. They also did a student survey. The student survey was very positive. I agree it's a self-selected group. You're going to have a challenge when it's requirements. I agree with your comment, Phil, that, you know, if you're forced to do something for a variety of reasons, some students will be oppositional, not want to be there. And that will be a whole nother ball game. But I pushed you on that a lot because that was my big concern is what are you going to do when it's required? So I feel comfortable with that. And then to add to Esme's point, I agree that each unit builds on itself. I think there is a logical sequence. And I think if you take kind of each curriculum out of context, you kind of are missing kind of the point. And I think also we're missing the point when we sort of just look at the curriculum because that's not the classroom. I mean, if I could sit in there for all the classrooms, I would, but I think that students don't want me to go away after a while. They wouldn't want a trustee sitting in every classroom.
And I still think of the written materials, not counting the framework and a few of the other things, is examples. They are slide sets that are examples of what one or more of the teachers use. They're a composite of them. And that doesn't mean they're going to use the same slides next year. They may have learned from experience that that's not the best way to present that one thing. Or from our comments, they're going to change them. But that's what iterative refinement's about, is that you learn from doing and you adjust, make it better. So I think that I'm satisfied enough that they will carry forward in a good way with the course.
Mark, do you want to say something?
Yeah.
Or you're just playing with your money?
First of all, I appreciate, as I said in the beginning, the time dedicated to really digging in. And I want to emphasize the comments I heard about how these are, in essence, the framework is in essence our standards. So our goals are to teach these concepts and standards, and good teachers change things that don't work. They adjust, it does iteratively evolve. I took some summary comments on this discussion just to point out some of the things that we're going to continue to talk about. There is a desire, especially if something may be hard to understand or may be perceived as not clear enough, for more detailed explanation and context within what has been written. There's a desire for us to continue to be cognizant of language and to continue to filter it through an analysis of bias. And I know the teachers have done that, but I think it's just something we have to continue to do when we look at the course, to say, is this, to really play the devil's advocate. And I've seen them do that when they're preparing and have those questions of each other. I taught this social science for many years, 15 years, and within it, 7 through 12, you have these concepts that come up that are very complicated, and our teachers are trained in unpacking concepts such as capitalism as early on as elementary school. And so they really do look at the concepts and discuss the pros and cons. And I think a wise person said to me, capitalism may not be the best system, but it's the best system we have. I'm quoting Dr. Felice here to my left, who's nodding no. But certainly I have that as a comment, because I do want to say that we're aware this is 9th grade and our students are very advanced intellectually and have had some of this as background: 5th grade US history, 8th grade US history, and they will have it in 11th up until government. So they're very capable of looking at many different sides themselves, but we do make sure we present them. Another comment from what you just said, we have looked to make sure that those first drafts that were thrown out by the state of California, and we, we'll just continue to be vigilant to cross-check, because we know that through public records requests, there was some data that was sent out that had some information from those first drafts, and we acknowledge that. And there's a reason that certain segments were pulled from this course. And so we will adhere to the framework as it's written and has been approved by the state. But that was a comment. And then just you're right, curriculum, really our goal is to approve the course, because you get a textbook and you're teaching the standards within that textbook. The textbook is to assist you in teaching those standards, but you're pulling from other places. And that leads to another comment that was stated. We have to make sure that we have diverse perspectives as we're pulling, and just make sure that we continue to do that. And then I like what the teacher does is what is most important. The pushing them to think as a comment. And then lastly, just continuing to look at that student feedback. I will point to, this was the last day of school in Dr. Yick's class in ethnic studies. And yes, they were self-selected. But it's just a beautiful snapshot. It doesn't hurt that this is the most beautiful room in our district. I tell her every time I go in a room, I say that. And I go in for the teaching, but I stay for the view. But in, really, really important comments that all of you are making. And when you look at the framework, I do think you missed the conversation. And so that is really, I use my terrible medical analogy, really the ligaments that are holding this course together. But anyway, those are the comments from this conversation that I'm hearing from you. And I do know that Terry and the team will continue to really push the thinking of, what are we not considering? Who are we not considering? And what voices do we need to make sure that we're representing? One last comment that I didn't hit. I think it's really important that we make sure our definitions are correct. And so, I think that's something that we can go back and reflect upon. Yes, there are many different definitions for things, especially when they involve, actually they evolve themselves, these definitions, and that's part of the challenge. But I do think that we want to just, go back and triple check to make sure that we are reflecting them accurately. And I believe we are. I just want to just point that out as a comment that I heard here.
Yeah,
I continue not to understand what we're being asked to approve. Catherine, you pointed out several times that we've already approved the course.
We've already approved the framework, frankly,
And
but now,
For 1 year.
but after
For 1
we've
year.
seen the pilot implement the framework, are we now approving the course to be carried on? And we approved that we want to do a course for 9th graders a whole year, but having seen the pilot as an example, 7 teachers worth, 6 teachers, five teachers worth. How many classes total?
7.
7 classes with 5 teachers. Present the pilot, and it went well, and people have reviewed the materials they used for their pilots. Then I feel that I can approve the course to continue on the same vein as the pilot going forward.
And I can just say that staff is asking for approval of the course for implementation in 9th grade next year. Last year, as I understood and recently reviewed, we were approved for 1 year pilot of this course to come back with information from the first year.
and also I should point out that the assembly bill that created this requires a first reading. So this is required under the law. And the language, I believe, is to approve the course.
Correct.
That is it. I guess I did want to add that as terms of language, I think the most problematic language is when you try to define complicated words like degrading, which is a complicated word, it has a lot of nuance to it. And then you put in a simpler word. I know it's scaffolding, but I think thinking about a little bit more about maybe not putting in a word and actually discussing it in class might actually be more effective than just putting in a word. I don't know because I'm not an expert on scaffolding, but I would agree with Phil that it doesn't capture the nuance of degrading.
Yeah. No, I think if that's, I mean, I think it's clear. I mean, so, you know, our goal for this evening is to approve the course, right? Not necessarily
That's what it appears to be, yes.
not the material, not the specific inside material of all of it. So I think we can move forward with that.
Feel free to make a motion.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the ethnic studies course.
Second.
So it's been moved by Sanjay, seconded by Theta that we quote.
No,
approve.
she beat me.
Oh, you beat her.
I did.
I saw her moving, so I thought she beat you.
I didn't say second in time.
Sorry, Theta, better luck next time. Okay, all in favor, raise your hand by saying aye.
Aye.
4 in favor, against, no against. I'm abstaining, I'm reserving judgment. I still continue to believe that the written word is powerful. It's what exists long after the people who created it are gone. Perhaps there will be a new version of the written word because we didn't approve anything having to do with that. So I will remain hopeful that we can arrive at better written materials one way or another.
Excuse me, I actually think we did approve the framework, but we did not approve the curriculum, is my understanding of what you asked for. Is that correct?
Correct, the course.
The framework, I mean, that is written.
The framework last year.
Course.
There was a framework. I think it was approved
The
last year.
language is course, and I'm going to defer over here
Okay,
to Terry.
But I just want to clarify because there is a question. But my understanding is by approving the course, we are approving the framework, which was presented to us multiple times.
Correct.
But we did get more information as Unit 7 was created.
Correct. And that was my exact question. That's why I
Yeah,
had the answer
okay.
so quickly.
Thank you.
Okay, next item. So this is a first reading and public hearing on the school district budget.
Correct.
Your favorite one?
Well, good evening, everyone. Elvis and I are back this meeting to present the full budget for the 2023-2024 fiscal and academic year. Last meeting, I was here to present high-level overview, assumptions that we're going into building the budget. So now we have a detailed budget. We're not going to go over the very detailed budget on all the standardized account code structure forms, but those are available online. Board has printed copies of that packet. It's available here in the boardroom or the district office to refer to. So with that, we're going to jump in. And like I said, again, this is high level overview. This is the public hearing for the budget as required by Ed Code along with the LCAP for adoption at a subsequent meeting. Dr. Meyer referenced the updated 6-year goals, and they're newly minted on the poster on the wall. And so we've incorporated it into our budget presentation. And really, this is just our opportunity to highlight and acknowledge the work that business services does to support all the other goals and focusing on people are cheering for us already.
Yeah.
Oh, we haven't even gotten to the good part yet. Take a bow. You're done. You're anticipatory, right? That's all right. Anyway, but we talk a lot about improving the academic achievement of all students, and that is the foremost in our minds and why we're here. And we can help by being fiscally responsible in budgeting, providing personnel and facilities that optimize teaching and learning. So That is paramount in our mind as we create the budget for the new year. And with that, we turn it over to our fiscal services director, Elvis Lopez. They walk us through some of the numbers, again, high level, and then I'll return at the end to wrap up. So Elvis, take it away, and there's a quick read in advance.
Sweet. So again, this is just very high level, all the accounts, all the general fund accounts condensed. You'll see at the bottom, it's a decrease of fund balance. This is the spending of all funds that we have still from COVID funds. We have two more COVID funds that we're depleting out. So, and also you heard earlier that the state has taken some money back. This includes some of that money that we're allowed to spend. So this is a high level. The funds unrestricted is 274,000 available on that balance of this one. The decrease is mostly unrestricted. Again, like Mike said, these are highlights. 7% increase of property taxes for budget for next year. The shoreline dollars actually went up. We just got the new number last week. We already had done our budget, so this number is going to go up by probably $200,000 more. So I think we're going to get 3.6 following next by first interim. We'll have a get to that number. And again, it's the reduction of the $1.9 million, which can change because they've been talking about the assembly is approving it, but the Senate doesn't want to. So it's a lot of back and forth that's going on. We don't know yet, but we're projecting that we're not money's going to end up going away. Again, expenditures, 80% of the budget is salaries, and a normal all across the board. Certificate personnel, certificate banking fees went up. That's a position for an average teacher now. Health and welfare projected 10%, which again will adjust that percent because we have more updated numbers. Either actually went up last year with over 10%. So again, it's when we get the actual numbers, actually, we'll find out more. And CalPERS stayed the same all across.
Elvis, what's the average salary? Just salary, not what you
For
did.
teachers, it's 240.
Not including benefits.
I think it was 170 something. I think it was 175. I think it was around there. I can give you an actual number if you want it.
Yeah,
The statutory costs, it's in the budget document, the total statutory costs for certificated teachers, it's about 22% plus health and welfare, ballpark around 30,000 total. So you can kind of maybe back out of that. I mean, 210 is salary and statutory, so
that's pretty high. That's great.
Our district reserve, again, 3%, we met our mark. Our two-month operation, that's what we're still showing it. OPEB money, we still have a huge reserve again, but we met our remark on two of them. That this is the board approved to have at least to cover our expenditures. Enrollment, you can see we've gone up. We know we're plateauing. So again, these numbers can change. I think last year after getting the leads, when they go down on enrollment, this year we're actually in the next year we're projecting going to go 26 students again. We don't know because we don't know when entry level kids come in. I believe we're going to do a study, demographic study next year to find out, get more accurate numbers on what the outer years look like.
Do you want us to ask questions now or wait till the end?
Let's see.
yeah, maybe we just have a couple more slides. So maybe
Okay.
since we're that far along, we'll hold questions if that's okay.
Okay.
Thank you for asking.
On what they are projecting, you'll see again decrease size because it's spending one-time money, and then the outer years there's an increase because the 5% we don't have any salary increases anymore after that because 5% is already included in year one. These are when no salary schedules increases on there. Multi-year assumptions again, like I said, we're predicting 26 more students next year, and then again we have going down in enrollment. We've seen that from elementary schools. We've seen that a lot everywhere. I've seen it at my school district that my kids go back. So a lot of this could change when we do the demographics here as well. So again, this is kind of what we think it's going to be at, but these numbers can change and once we do the demographics. And third consistent 19.10%. PERS goes up every year, and again these numbers will change again because they're constantly changing.
And So wrapping up the budget and then looking ahead, I know we have our public hearing and we'll wait and we're going to recommend adoption of budget at the next board meeting, but we adjust these things looking ahead to the fall. Close the fiscal year June 30th. We close the books and do all the unaudited actuals and wrap up the current fiscal year. We'll have that September. And then in December, we look at the first interim budget report, right? So that's our first look at all the updates. And at that time, we revise it based upon the state budget. Elvis mentioned, I mentioned last time, the state will approve their budget by June 15th because they like to get paid. And that's the deadline by which they have to approve it in order to get paid. And we'll know then, is it a $1.9 million cut to the one-time funds that have been in the budget? Is it a smaller cut? How that all turns out, and then we'll respond in kind with that. But we are planning. It's all right. It's good anyway. It's time for us to stop. Anyway, we're assuming our budget that cut of 1.9 million, so we will wait and see. As Elvis mentioned, the Educational Enhancement Reserve short-term agreement that was approved in consolidated motion is a higher number than we had at the time when we were adopting the budget. So that's a good thing to our positive. So we get all those detailed things included in the first interim. We'll know then better how the actual property tax revenue is coming in. 7% is our crystal ball based upon information from the county. June 1st, assessed valuation growth. I was less than thrilled by. Didn't jump from May to June as much as I'd seen historically. So, again, that's all timing. Sometimes the assessor's office just didn't get to it by June 1st to get that new property or that property that changed hands in time for May, and it'll be on the June roll. So we'll wait and see and update our budget to reflect those actuals. And then we do budget, salary benefit. We talk about the average cost and we put that plug number in because until they actually show up, they're processed by HR, they show us how many years of service they have. We ask for the evidence of that. Then we place them on the actual salary schedule. Could be 2 years, could be 5 years, max is 12 years of prior credit they get. So then we actually know those numbers. As Elvis mentioned, we get our medical renewal rates right around late August, September, so we can plug in those actual renewal rates for both Cigna and Kaiser. So, a lot of budgeting now is forecasts, projections based upon the most up-to-date information we have. And the first interim is a chance to refine that and get it more accurate because a lot of that information has come in. And then, when we close the books on the current fiscal year, that then becomes a base to use for updated percentage increases and things like that. So, the final slides are just in there for reference. These are every year we do the adopted budget. If you want to read those SACs, standardized accounting code structure forms, that's what it correlates to with the Form 01 to Funds 01 through 08 and on down the list. And then we have a great team. And I want to give Elvis a lot of credit while he's here. Right, he's really taken on in this supervisory managerial role with the fiscal services staff in particular, giving them opportunity for training and growth, pushing them to come with solution-oriented discussions and conversations about how we can improve what we do. And we enjoy working with each other as well, which is no small thing. I mean, it's highly valued. And so getting work done, being technical in that way, but enjoying where you work with is key. And so it's an opportunity for us to highlight that. So thank you. And with that, then yes, we'll open up for questions.
Hey, Mike, what I'm going to ask you about is enrollment.
Yeah.
Because you had projected a negative number and now it's positive. And my question to you is, my question is the effect of COVID on enrollment, because I think it did depress enrollment because, one of the big advantages of our school is our amazing facilities and, being together in person, which Zoom cannot provide. And there's sort of a lag effect, obviously, because if you decide to put your student in private school, if you have that option, you're probably not going to pull them out once you've made that decision. So what do you think? Do you have any idea on the effect of COVID, or are you just going to tell me the demographer knows?
Well, I will tell you, my first first part of the answer is I think it's still too soon to really see the full effect of COVID as things got settled. What's happening with that? Where we were originally, when you saw these slides earlier in the year, was showing a decrease that was straight off of the demographic projection.
Right.
Not the absolute value or absolute scale of total enrollment, but really just the delta of the change year to year. Because for budget purposes, it's not really like, okay, let's start at 0 and how many teachers do we need for 4,400 students? It's often what's just the change year to year, right? The up or down. What truly happens then when we get closer to the new budget cycles, we work with Terry and Educational Services because they're really the frontline folks with enrollment coming in from the middle schools. And that number even changes from, I guess, November, maybe start that first data pull from the partner districts. And then the private school students start rolling in. And that's what changes that, plus 26 enrollment really is that, very direct, who's in the database, what students have registered for classes and enrolled. So that's where that number becomes far more accurate than a demographic projection down the road.
Well, what is Mountain View West Los Altos elementary district? What are they saying in terms of
I
enrollment?
couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I don't know.
That's, I mean, they're basically our gauge, right? I mean, are they saying, are they getting more students or less? That's,
I don't want to misspeak and say the wrong thing, so
Okay.
I'll check with my counterparts
That
there
would
and
be-
find out. They span more grades.
that's like 95% of our students, or at least probably, right?
I'd say it's very high. I
Very.
mean, the number of, what our incoming class is about 500-ish students and ballparking, right? Of those at each school. I mean, at each school, 500, 525, right? 50 of private school, I don't know, more or less, so the vast majority are coming from this partner.
Well, I guess what I have to say is that a lot of or both our partner districts have seen a decline in enrollment. And I mean, it's not, yes, they have seen a decline in enrollment, and it's not like something has gone terribly wrong with those schools. I think it has to do with COVID. And it's like, if you're in kindergarten, I mean, kindergarten over Zoom really does not work very well. So and also, again, there's a lag because if you decide to put your kid in kindergarten, then you're probably going to stay through 5th grade or 6th grade, depending on the school district you're in. So I think it's hard to me, I'm a little bit nervous because I feel like COVID is such an unprecedented event. So I don't know if suddenly after, I mean, we're still not done with COVID. I just heard from someone who tested positive. I'm not positive, but so we're still dealing with COVID. I agree with you. So I'm just wondering if the elementary schools or partner districts are gonna see suddenly this increase, people coming back, and then we're gonna have like that's just my only concern as a trustee. But I guess to me, I just have to note it because we don't know. But I have to note it as a concern that I have.
And I'm gonna talk to that because when I was in my program, a lot of the southern areas in the Bay Area saw an increase. They've actually got the opposite effect. So even though we're decreasing in this area, the other outside districts, Salinas are being shot up really big, and that was a huge concern. They're like, well, we don't have enough teachers now. So I think it all depends on the pockets we're in. And here, a lot of it, the rent has gone up. People teleworking, or you want to call it, could also be an effect on why students are going away, because some of the parents are not coming back. And what if the parents come back, then get the students back? So I think it's a lot of variation that we don't know, because a lot of that will play into a factor.
So could I ask you guys, when you speak, I know there's a height difference. Could you speak into the mic, even if you have to
Yes.
pick the mic up?
Yes.
I mean, I know you don't have this data, but I guess we would have it though. You're saying you're seeing a decrease of students because of people might have moved out of the area.
Yes.
Could we see breakdown from demographics of who has left the area based on the students? Would we have that data?
And you mean in terms of demographic of our students that have left?
Yeah, that or not.
Yeah, I just.
The reason I'm asking, because you mentioned people who are the one, because one of the things we're seeing, right, in the low income families, right, we're seeing them because of either because of rents, right, you know, jobs, you know, losing jobs, right, whatever the reasons might be, they may be leaving the area, right, going to lower price area, lower cost area. So I'm just curious to see if we're experiencing that. Or
Yeah,
not.
I think the best, I mean, it's a little bit like getting an exit survey, right? It's hard to know why they're leaving.
No, I know, yeah,
So I think the best we could do, and I can work with that services, you know, I think we could just look at data year to year.
You know,
right?
I don't want to put more work on it, so
Yeah.
I was curious if we knew if that's something we just have data we have, but if we don't, that's fine.
I would say we don't have data on it right now, just currently, on average, we have 460 coming in from our public feeder schools, or as we call them, partner schools. And roughly around 83 students would come in from a private or charter school. And then I'm just,
That's only to one high school.
that's average between our two.
Average
Yep.
numbers. Oh, got it.
And then I'm just looking at the projections for the next couple years, which is what, you know, all that I have, and it's showing stability.
Hmm.
I do know that families move into the area to rent apartments for their students to attend our comprehensive high schools. And then once their students graduate, they typically move out and move into a different location. So I mean, that's all anecdotal. I haven't seen a whole lot of people moving out, and from what I'm hearing, and I'm, you know, getting inter-district transfers and questions from families about, you know, if I rent an apartment in this area, can I go to that comprehensive, or do I have to go to this comprehensive?
Is Los Altos still impacted? Is that the one we're seeing most impacted still?
So we've been working actually really diligently with our transfers, and we are very, very close between the two high schools, maybe within 10, 20 students.
That's good.
I would like to know in terms of the enrollment, if we're following, or whether the city will give us the following the different building projects that they are going to approve in the shorter term before we actually build another high school sometime. How many more of those will come in with smaller development projects than the ones we're all talking about in the next couple of years, or will the demographer figure that in too, if we get a new one?
So we are already working with our consultant, demographic consultant, Jack Schrader and Associates, who also works with Mountain View Wisman. In particular to, and they've already done this for Mountain View Wisman, so it's really just adding the grades 9 through 12, but looking at all the recent housing starts or projects, as well as the future planned ones, and getting updated enrollment projections or student generation out of those projects. So that is in the works, and I've been corresponding with the consultant about that to get that added information. The fuller demographic study does that, as well as looks at all the existing housing, existing K-8 enrollment, and factors that all in for a total number. So it's both of those will go together to look at future enrollment growth or enrollment projections.
So I think obviously new building is the most important, but also the city is doing some anti-displacement policies. So I think it would also be useful to see their data on how well that is working.
Also, did you already in this version of the budget adopted include the things we already know the governor's cutting?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's already in this one.
Yeah, it's the ending balance on the restricted account, 060. You have the open spreadsheet.
Yeah, okay.
It's there, the balance is on there, what we projected government to take back. That's what we were advised to do, to put ending balance, because we don't know if it's gonna happen or when they're gonna happen. or
Okay,
how to take
so
them.
where did you say this right here?
Keep going, are you on the up, if you're on the up fund spreadsheet?
Yeah.
All the way to 060,
Oh, 06 is special project.
yes, and go all the way down.
Okay.
Some of that money right there is the cuts that the governor's
Under restricted.
yes, under restricted, yes.
Yeah, so we've received it. It's in our beginning fund balance,
Yeah.
but we're not spending it
Mhm.
until we know what's happening. So it falls down and shows up in that ending fund balance is like a, a balance at the end of the year, but we're preserving it should we either, we don't know how the state do,
Not
have to
get it
give
or
it back or.
I just didn't know where it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah,
And, but that reduction of 1.9 million is factored into this, proposed budget for next year, so that's already been factored in.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, in that case, thank you, Mike and Elvis. I will now open the public hearing. Public hearing is open. Any member of the public wish to speak on the budget? Being none, I will close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Okay, that formality is out of the way. Now we have another one, the LCAP.
That's the public hearing too.
Yes, this is, Ed Code requires that we agendize a public hearing for the LCAP provide the public an opportunity to comment prior to adopting the LCAP at a subsequent meeting, which we are holding on June 9th. 2023. Just for reference, we brought a 3-year plan forward in 2021 that will take us until 2024. And so this is an extension of the 2021 plan, and it will conclude and be rewritten with probably new guidelines in 2024. So this is something that needs to come annually, but it is part of the 3-year plan.
Okay. Thank you, Nellie. Any comments or questions for Nellie?
No, I asked my questions last time.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Then I will open the public hearing. Public hearing on the LCAP is now open. Any comments? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. Next, we have a resolution for declaration of need for fully qualified educators.
Thank you. This is our annual resolution that comes before us in business where we need to declare the need for fully qualified educators. So we have the option open to, if necessary, use the contingency of emergency permits.
Okay.
And one quick question is, we do have, a lot of the substitute teachers are operating under emergency permits.
The substitute teachers have a different requirement. They have a different set of standards. They pass the CBEST test. And so, and they're only allowed to teach for a certain
30
amount,
days.
exactly,
In the same classroom.
in the same classroom.
Mhm.
So they are not,
They're not in this
fully
one.
qualified. They're not involved in this.
Good, thank you.
Thanks for the clarification.
Anybody else have a question? Okay, do I have a motion?
Motion.
I second the motion to
Okay,
approve
it's
the,
been moved and
declaration.
seconded. We adopt resolution 22/23-58. Any further discussion? All in favor, and signify by raising your hand or saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carries 5-0. Another public hearing, disclosure of our collective bargaining agreement, and I guess Nellie and Terry, Nellie and Layla.
Yes, this is a public hearing that brings before you the collective bargaining agreement that was brought to that it was as a result of the conclusion of DTA discussions in the last 2 weeks, and that agreement is attached. And we have staff here if we need for questions. Staff, Ms. Benson, who has a name.
Any questions, comments? Okay, since this is a public hearing, I will have to open that. Public hearing is open. Any comments? None. Public hearing is closed.
One person. Only one public.
She was just waving to say.
No, she's only going to report on the comment. Yeah.
Okay, approval of the proposed tentative agreement with the District Teachers Association. This is actually an action item. It is not a public hearing.
I move that we accept and ratify the tentative agreement between district and DTA.
Do I hear a second?
Just to know, I will recuse myself from
Thank
this
you.
vote.
I guess I'll second then.
Okay, moved by Catherine, seconded by David, that we approve the proposed agreement. Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by raising your hand or saying aye. Motion carries 4-0, and I assume you're abstaining since you recused yourself. Okay. We are up to another public hearing. CSEA fact-finding committee on reclassification outcomes.
Correct. I want to commend our personnel department for reestablishing and successfully completing the reclassification process for our CSEA bargaining units. These attachments include the results of that reclassification process, and you can see here the information. We also have Ms. Benson available for questions if necessary.
Any comments or questions on the reclassification? Okay, I will open the public hearing. Public hearing is now open on the 2023 CSEA fact-finding committee and reclassification outcome. Any comments? None. Public hearing is closed. We will not be resuming closed session. So we are at the point of asking for board suggestions for future board meetings. They will probably have to be next year's meetings. Anything? You'll have time over the summer to finish. Okay. Communications correspondence.
None at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Meyer. Date, time, and place of next meeting. Okay, so we do have a June 9th meeting, and Dr. Meyer said earlier that we're waiting for some board members to indicate whether they can make it earlier. I called my.
It's also not Monday.
What was that?
June 9th is a Friday, not a Monday.
Yes, did I say Monday?
Well, it says Monday on the agenda.
Oh. It does say Monday,
Most of them are Mondays.
So we can,
so let's pretend it's
Change that?
a Friday.
yes, there we go.
Yeah, so I had a call, I have a medical appointment at 9:45.
Okay.
So I believe if I didn't succeed in getting that canceled, I'll find out when I go home. If I didn't succeed in getting that canceled, the earliest I could be there is 10:30.
Okay.
And just a reminder, I won't be at the meeting.
Okay. Oh. Good.
Have fun.
Yes. Okay.
Okay,
So time to be determined. Good morning.
I think we're at the point in our meeting where we can ask for an adjournment.
I so move.
Second,
You have to
Moved
report.
by Catherine, seconded by
You just
Sandra.
have to report out the action, which we didn't take.
Report out action.
in the
If we
closed
didn't
session.
reconvene, but we
Oh,
didn't
Since
reconvene.
there was a second closed session, there's
Oh,
nothing.
yeah. Sorry. My bad.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Will we adjourn? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Bye.
Motion carries 5-0. Thank you all. Some of you